Hello and welcome back. We are with Carol McMahon, and we are going to transition our conversation to leadership and its application and ultimately evaluation and evolution of emergency management profession and the professional. Carol has practiced and taught leadership for many years. As I previously mentioned, I met Carol when I went through the basic academy at the Emergency Management Professionals program at EMI, and we became friends, and ultimately a student-teacher relationship continued through the advanced and the executive academies. I've watched her show leadership, I've watched her teach it, and she's currently showing it right now with her continued involvement in emergency management and the programs in which she's involved in. So thank you very much, Carol, for joining me in this conversation.
You're welcome, Dan. It's always great to spend some time with you. Thank you very much.
So ultimately, what I'm trying to do with these presentations and these conversations is I want to advance leadership, its practice in emergency management. As we've discussed multiple times, when it comes to emergency management, we don't necessarily sit in positions of authority, although we are seeing more and more of those positions present themselves. We need to be ready to fill them as emergency managers. And my goal here is to provide a level of open-mindedness, thought-provoking discussion on how we improve leadership in emergency management that will benefit both the profession and the professional moving forward. So I know you have lots of insight in this area, and I'd like to open it up to you to start the discussion on it.
Well, thank you very much, Dan. When we talk about leadership, and you're absolutely right. When we think about emergency management and the field in which we're in, the profession, it's a new profession. It's a new field, and anything meaningful does take time, and we understand that. It's not like the fire department or the police department that have been around forever, and they've maintained and brought up a level of leadership, of recognition of authority that we're still working on in emergency management. Some of the things that we work in, and I know that we spoke about the Emergency Management Professionals program before, but the things that a lot of the classes work in at EMI, Emergency Management Institute, is how do we move the profession forward, and how do we get and attain that level of leadership and respect, if you will, that has been afforded the police and the fire, the other first responder agencies, and it's a challenge. And I see our professional associations moving forward and trying to bring that level of professionalism and that level of leadership up. But the challenge is, and it comes back down to all disasters are local. So we really do have to start that leadership capability at our local levels, those of us who are engaged in emergency management in our local, in our county, in our state levels. I see the challenge, and have experienced the challenge of leadership without authority. And part of the challenge, something that I brought to the Executive Academy in this cohort, was the reality of politics and leadership. I mean, we don't like to talk about politics, but we have to deal with it every single day, all the time. And politics is part of why sometimes we can't get things done. So one of the things that I talked to our cohort about was getting beyond the politics in order to get things done, especially when we have all the responsibility and none of the authority. How do we look at policy, which is a great deal of what we're doing in the Executive Academy? How do we look at policy and understand why a certain policy has been made? And more importantly, if that policy is no longer valid, how do you change it? Because once you have a policy, that's our policy. That's our policy. I can't change that policy. What? Oh my gosh. So, and what we tend to forget is that most policies have been made, especially those that are a little bit sketchy, was because somebody did something really stupid. And now we have to have a policy so that it doesn't happen again. Long after that person's name is gone or that situation is over, we're still left with dealing with those types of policies. And unfortunately, policies are political and they do not move easily. So one of the things that I worked with the group was, how do you do that? Well, first off, let's understand that people are policy. So when you're looking at building your team as to how to change something, it's a policy type of a thing, make sure you pick the right people to be on your team. Prioritize your leaders and your builders, because those are the people who drive the program and do the work. Build your team, find your champions. Your champions don't have to be traditional people that you're normally working with, but look out in your community practice and find the people that this policy affects directly, and that they're like-minded with you. Go find those people and bring them into your team. They don't have to work for you. They just have to be part of that team, part of your larger community. Understand that maybe your existing team can't help you. Maybe not that they are not willing to, but maybe they simply can't, because they have jobs. And if you have a really big problem, you're going to have to concentrate on working on that problem. So look around and see what you have in your community of work. The other opportunity here with people or policy is the ability to utilize possibly interns or students who need time to work on practical stuff in emergency management, that you can bring in and say, I have something for you to do that doesn't involve filing paperwork or doing something that's meaningful emergency management work. So maybe that's some place where you can look at to bring people in. The second thing is data. If you want to change something in emergency management, if you want to change a bad policy or a policy that needs to be changed, data is important. A lot of people are data driven, and if they're making decisions, they should be making decisions based on good data and lots of data sometimes. Facts define the problem and could provide some navigation areas for response. And something really important to think about here is the stories of the human points of pain. Who does this policy affect negatively? What are the real stories here? I can give you a story about a policy that it would take us up to 9 weeks to get approval to write a grant. 9 weeks. That's just to get the approval. That's just to be able to put the paperwork in. By the time you get the approval, your grant period might be over, your application period might be over. We lose out on a lot of money. That's a point of pain, which I brought forward when I tried to change a policy in my community. You're tying our hands together. Let's see what we can come up. But it's data and it's facts and the points of pain that bring that abstract down to the reality. Yes, we don't want to change it just for the sake of changing it. We want to change it because these are the people that you're affecting. So let's see if you can make some of the changes. The third one is focus on how to do it. How am I going to change this? How are we going to change this? And make sure that your actions align with what you want, with your targeted results. When you're ready to give out the new policy or trial it, make sure that the key partners are identified, who needs to know. Set the timing, make sure it's appropriate, the timing is appropriate. Make sure you communicate clearly. I mean, communication is really the main key on anything, especially when you're looking to make changes that some people are going to find uncomfortable. And listen and seek out feedback. You can still change things. Use the feedback. Don't operate in absolutes. Maybe you missed something, or you want to make sure that you're listening to everyone and that you get that kind of feedback back to everyone. And then finally, push for results. Don't let it just hang out there. You did all this work, you got the facts, you got the people, you got your key people in there. This is part of your leadership. This is part of that piece that you want to go and get out there and say, okay, evaluate, measure. This is what we did. Expect that you're going to have course corrections. Like I said, seek out feedback. But you want to be able to push this information out and you push the results out so that you can get that kind of feedback. It's not easy to change policy. It's hard. And sometimes we want to give up, but sometimes you have to just get in there and do it and have that moment. And if you don't have the authority to do it, you're going to need the ability to be able to get people behind you to move your idea forward. The other thing is if you're into data, and I'm just throwing this in here, don't use averages. As we know, you got a bunch of 90-degree days and an equal number of 40-degree days. So the average is 65-degree days. And if you're sitting in New England right now, today, and it's 99 degrees, averages don't work. Averages definitely don't work.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. But one of the areas I'd really like to touch on, and it's a very interesting area when it comes to policy and making those changes. And kind of one of the things that I'm really pushing on the individuals, and I'm trying to make people uncomfortable here, I really am, is the level of intention that needs to go behind that. Because with leadership, you said you might not have the authority, but you can gain influence. But it's ultimately the action that you take in order to make that change. And as you alluded to earlier, we have some organizations out there that are trying to help push the profession forward and bring it into a more professional standards. But ultimately, and I've said this multiple times, and this is nothing against them, I belong to many of them, but it's not the organization that's going to make the change. It's the individuals driving the projects inside that organization that are going to make change, and their willingness to really step up into leadership positions and leadership decision making and push them forward. And which
Yes.
will in turn push the profession, which will push the professional. But it ultimately could turn around and be the opposite. By me pushing myself as a professional, I can help push the profession forward. And but there's that level of intention and willingness to put in the effort to do it. And that's huge when it comes to, there's a lot of policy out there that's really, it could hinder the work that we do as emergency managers, but public safety in general. But politics does play a role, and if we can change or enhance upon current policy, we can definitely be, not only bettering ourselves for what the actions that we're taking, but the community in which we're serving, the profession in which we reside, and ourselves as individuals, continuing to get better. Who can beat that, right?
Who can beat that? And one of the examples that I use when I talk about actually moving policy forward, when we look at it, is an example that a dear friend of mine brought to me during right after Hurricane Maria, and the issue was food. And again, we go back to food. FEMA would bring tractor trailers full of food and park it in the Walmart parking lot, which was open and selling food. So the issue being is that if you're trying to bring back, for people to go in and use their vouchers or whatever to support the local community or the local little store or get milk and bread or what have you, whereas FEMA's over there giving food away out of the big truck. The issue was policy did not allow to give people a debit card to be able to go buy food from the little local store because they weren't in the system. FEMA was able to take a look at that policy, to their credit, and change it so that instead of bringing tractor trailers, trucks full of food, which costs a fortune, they could spend that money giving the debit cards to the local people and be able to have them help the local economy by using the small stores to be able to use that. And a lot of that had to do with the new technology of being able to open up, geocache certain areas and be able to authorize those little stores to be able to utilize those cards. So it is possible. It is possible to be able to do that. If FEMA can move that truck, I can tell you, we can do a lot of things. But again, it takes the will, it takes the leadership of someone to be able to pull all of this together and to be able to make it a focus to correct something or to move something. And I think we're moving in that direction, and we're building this leadership capacity when we have those courses at EMI and we bring people together to be able to teach them some leadership and strategic thinking and strategic planning and data management and program management. I'm seeing great things. I'm seeing really great things in the field and in the profession of emergency management.
Yeah, I am too, and it is great. But ultimately, my goal is to, like I said, make people uncomfortable and get them to step more into an active, engaged, more proactive, really engaged way of doing things as it comes to emergency management. As leaders in the industry, we need to really be engaging, influencing, and building the communities up in which we reside, and that could be jurisdictional, organizational. I mean, it could be whatever. I mean, however wherever you may sit within your scope of work. It could be educational. It could be practice. It could be theory. It could be policy. It could be whatever it may be, to make more intentional effort to advance the profession. And in doing so, you're advancing yourself, which in itself is beneficial to everyone. But the real scope for me, and I really want to touch on this before we end out, is that I have been kind of on a big push right now, and I'm doing, I mean, constant research and developing to be a marketer over the
Mhm.
last year and a half. And you say you were in advertising, and I feel as emergency managers, we have to become marketers. We have to be able to market ourselves, what
Yeah.
we do, how we do it, why it's important, and how it is good for them. How people do things that's good for
Exactly.
them, and we have to be able to market that in
Mhm.
a way that says, this is why it is important that you do this. It is good for you, it benefits you. And as marketers, we will learn how to do that in a way that we put ourselves out there all the time. And
As
so I'd like
well
to give you an opportunity to
as
chime in.
as well as public, yeah, as well as public information. Let me throw in a piece for that, because too often we know we're doing good and we don't get the word out. So it's part of that marketing and PR piece that we really need to get better at. Um, Tooting our own horn, getting that information out. Here's the information for you, and this is what I've done for you lately. I think it's a very important, very, very important thing. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for that.
Do you have any ultimate recommendations or suggestions for that emergency management practitioner or professional in general could utilize or practice to make them better marketers?
I think that's a good question, Dan. I think that many of the emergency management people that I've run into over the course of my years here, one of the things I've certainly recommended to them is a public information course, because it really sit down and makes you think about who's your audience and what they need to know and what you need for them. And it's good information anyway to start with the public with public information, to get that information out. Who who needs to know what? When do they need to know it? How do I need to deliver that information? And that's all part of marketing as well. We're marketing what we're doing, and we're sending out the information ahead of time to get people to stay prepared or to be prepared. We're getting into the community with public information to be able to let them know what some situations might be coming up, or to be a little bit better prepared. I think that's a good place to start. And again, I mean, I'm like you, a big proponent of the courses at Emergency Management Institute. If any of you all listening have not been there yet, definitely take a look at their catalog, and see if that you can go there. It is free. There is no charge. You will have to buy a meal ticket. I think that might be reimbursable through your own agency, and you're reimbursed for your flight as well. So take a look at some of the courses on at EMI. Apply for them, because they are absolutely fantastic courses. But there are a lot of other courses that are available there too that might be able to pique your interest and make you a better practitioner and a better leader in emergency management.
Yeah, well said. Thank you so much. And Carol, just to wrap up the segment, I just want to say thank you so much for spending the time with me today. Your time is the most valuable thing you can give anybody, and I appreciate you giving me some today. And the insight to the discussion has been amazing. And like always, You have definitely taught me something to continue to bring towards the development of not only the profession, but the professional, which is very important to me in the steps that I'm taking because I am making a shift as well from being just solely a practitioner to being a supporter of the practitioner. And my goal is to give as much support, coordination, and resources to the practitioner as I possibly can. And EMI is definitely a huge resource to add to any practitioners or theorists or professionals resource library, if you will, of a place that they can go to acquire not only the skills needed in a specific area, but the resources by developing networking, collaboration, and just in general growth. And I appreciate the work that you're doing, and just ultimately thank you for the time that you give me today.
No problem, Dan. It's been an absolute pleasure, and it's been a pleasure getting to know you and to see you grow over these years that we've come to know each other. And it's been a true pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me.
No, thank you. And for all those who are watching or listening, thank you for taking the time to watch this, listen to this. And if you want to reach out for more information, please do so. If you liked the content that was shared, you found value here, please share it with someone else who could find value at any point in time. You can reach out to me through direct messenger. I will put the links to be able to find Carol, and also the Emergency Management Institute's courses that we mentioned, in just the overall site in general, where you can find the courses that were there. My goal here is just to grow you as the individual, but also grow the profession in the way we do things. I'm Dan Scott. Let's get better. Let's do it together.
Thank you.